Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name's Gary, hope you're having a great day. Thanks for joining me for my review of Cyberpunk 2077. I just finished my Let's Play of the game not long ago. I'll put a link to that in the description. Not to worry, I'll be keeping this review as spoiler free as possible, just in case you haven't had a chance to check it out yet. This is my first time reviewing a game, so I apologise in advance if I missed something out that I should have commented on. I've been gaming now for about 25 years. I feel like I can at least bring some experience to the table when it comes to reviewing a game. So anyway, after years of being hyped for this game, did it meet my expectations? I'm going to have a look at it and find out. First of all, I want to get the obvious bad stuff out the way that you've likely heard a lot about, even if you haven't checked out the game yet yourself. Cyberpunk suffered a rough launch, to say the least. It was pushed back several times, and judging from what I could find, the shareholders refused to wait any longer, and so the executives decided to ship it in its current state, despite it not being finished. As such, it was nearly unplayable on the older generation consoles and even on some PCs, with a lot of crashes and bugs. And it has been patched several times since then, and has seen some measure of improvement, particularly on PC. But nonetheless, not a good start. So I just wanted to address that. I got especially lucky in my time with the game. As you'll see in my Let's Play, I did encounter some minor bugs and glitches, but nothing game breaking, thankfully. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case for the overall player base, to my understanding. There were also certain times where I felt like dialogue options had no impact on the course of a conversation, so the outcome remained the same. For example, choosing between two dialogue options would sometimes have you automatically say the other option anyway, as well as some missions feeling like they just didn't flow organically in the direction you might expect, which would suggest that quite a lot of content was cut from the game or it was just never finished. So that's not great either. But now that I've got that out the way, that's the major ones. I'd like to move on to something that I think the game did right, and that's the music. And in my opinion, the soundtrack was outstanding. The game does have some flaws, but I don't think music is one of them. It can be it's intense, emotional, it's powerful, energetic, it's even haunting sometimes when it needs to be. It incorporates a lot of synth and heavy bass. It even includes a fictional hardcore punk band known as Samurai, which was actually recorded by a Swedish band called Refused. You can find an EP on YouTube which includes all 5 tracks used within the game, so that's worth checking out if that's your kind of thing. The music does add a lot to the game, particularly during cutscenes and dialogue, where it makes the scenes a lot more impactful. I found the use of the strings especially good. Those of you who have heard the cello version of the Rebel Path, aka Johnny Silverhand's official theme, will know what I mean. That's also worth checking out. During my Let's Play, I was limited to music which was non-copyrighted. Thankfully there was an option in the settings to disable copyrighted music, but even with that limitation, I thought it was fantastic and didn't really feel like I was missing out on anything. And since I finished the game, I found myself listening to various radio station playlists and even the game's original soundtrack in my own time. And to me, that says the music really stood out, as it's not often I'll go looking for music after I've finished up a game. A few honourable mentions would be the Mass Effect series, Bioshock, and going even further back, Need for Speed Underground. That's a bit of a classic for that. In terms of graphics, this is where my opinion may differ from others. As I mentioned, I've been gaming for many years, since the early 90s, and the difference in graphics between then and now is ridiculous. I was running Cyberpunk on ultra settings with 1080p, averaging around 60 to 70 FPS, and overall I found the graphics pretty impressive. Night City, in which the game is set, was stunning. A lot of neon, very cyberpunk. I liked it a lot, so reminiscent of maybe like Blade Runner, something like that. And some of the landscape shots that I was able to get were just excellent. I really loved it. It had its graphical glitches in places, and it wasn't entirely polished, which is what I would expect from a game that definitely was not complete at launch. That being said, I don't put a lot of stock into graphics. I'm more impressed by exciting gameplay, story, and of course the music. And speaking of the gameplay, I found the gunplay to be pretty solid for a first-person shooter. You've got your standard selection of weapons like pistols, assault rifles, sniper rifles, and grenades, and so on. And the guns felt like they had some weight to them, which I appreciated. Sometimes FPS gunplay can feel a bit sort of light and floaty. In this case, it felt like they had a little, a good bit of punch to them, which is always nice. And I'm not gonna lie, the melee combat left a lot to be desired. It was a little janky and unpredictable at times, though that didn't stop me focusing on blades throughout my first playthrough, and it didn't take much away from the experience. I still had a blast doing it. And I was able to take advantage of the stealth mechanics of the game, which are fairly simple but effective. And because it's a cyberpunk game, of course, there's hacking involved. The minigame used to hack terminals wasn't overly complicated, and over time became fairly straightforward. Maybe could have used some extra mechanics to spice it up a bit, maybe in higher difficulty cases. But overall, it was pretty solid. And being able to remotely hack enemies and electrical equipment was really interesting, and in my opinion was done very well. The only time I saw similar was maybe in Watch Dogs, and that was as basic as it comes, a single button, and it didn't look impressive when you were doing it. Whereas this, I felt it had more impact. It was good. And the option to install sort of various body modifications in the form of cyberware, that opened up extra hacking opportunities, which was also a big positive here. And speaking of the cyberware, the options also included a lot of mods which help improve your combat capabilities, so allowing you to jump higher, soak up more damage. You can even give yourself retractable blades in your arms, and so on. It's pretty cool. Of course, all these gameplay features exist to facilitate the story, and that is another one of its strong suits in my opinion. The very basics of it, you play as a mercenary by the name of V, trying to make it big in Night City. V doesn't get a whole lot of backstory, and I believe the purpose of that is so that you, the player, can feel more like you are the main character yourself, which works for me. Without spoiling anything, the game covers a lot of remarkably interesting and serious topics. It's a mature story. It's not for kids. It covers like greed, loss, revenge, and ultimately redemption. And in my humble opinion, the writing in this game is fantastic, albeit I'm not an expert. Not to mention the superb quality of the voice actors in this game, just really good. And I quickly fell in love with the host of main characters and found myself drawn into the story. Some moments will catch you off guard, leave you sort of pondering what just happened, and other times they'll have you asking existential questions, in regards to your soul and whatnot. And there's some very heartfelt moments in the game that hit hard for me on a personal level, just stuff that I have going on. And then there are other times where it's just plain comedic in nature. I think the game strikes a nice balance between real and the surreal, and it can do that because of the setting that it's in. The sort of future setting, cyberpunk, it just lends itself to it. Of course, I can't talk about the story without mentioning Johnny Silverhand, aka Keanu Reeves. And Keanu absolutely kills it as Johnny, both in the motion capture and voice acting. I had a look at some of the behind the scenes stuff with the mocap, and he just got right into it, nailed it, it was great. And that definitely added a whole other level of enjoyment to the game for me. He plays a much larger role than I was initially led to believe, but that's not a bad thing. I've been a big fan of his for years, so to see him getting such a prominent role in a game like this was great for me. So maybe I'm a bit biased on that. The ending of the game, though, that was incredibly satisfying, and it's not often I get to say that about a game these days. Again, no spoilers, but it wraps everything up nicely in a way that I really enjoyed, and that's important because I think the ending of a game, what you take away from it, again, harking back to Mass Effect series, you know how badly the third one ended and how how it tarnished the reputation. A good ending is important, in my opinion. And what about after you complete the game? In terms of replay value, there are lots of different dialogue options to explore, as I said, and you can only cover so many in one playthrough. These often result in minor changes, but as far as I could tell, had no real effect on where the story goes. It's fairly linear overall. The game's numerous endings are also worth checking out, but if you're not inclined to play through the entire game again, there is an option after the credits which will allow you to load up an autosave and replay the final mission in order to select a different outcome. So this makes it quite easy for you to sort of test out all the endings without grinding the whole game, although I think that's part of the fun of it is doing that. Which leads into the appeal of doing another playthrough. Maybe you want to explore a different playstyle. So you could go through with rifles and blades, which is kind of what I did, and then you could go through it again as a netrunner, focused on dealing with enemies via the quick hacks that are available, taking them down from a distance with hacks. Totally different way to play the game. A single playthrough on its own will run you about maybe 30 to 40 hours if you don't complete all the available side missions and gigs and so on. And if you decide to explore the game in its entirety, it should give you around about 100 hours or so of content, from what I hear, which is pretty good value for money these days. Anyway, I'm going to try and wrap this up now with my final thoughts and overall verdict. The question I said I wanted to answer was, did this game meet my expectations? The honest answer to that would be almost. Even with the numerous delays, it was unlikely the game was going to be able to match the hype around it. It'd been coming for years, and yeah, the hype was crazy. My own time with the game was very positive. Despite the minor bugs I encountered, it gave me the cyberpunk experience I was looking for. Not to mention a surprisingly wonderful story to go along with it, populated by interesting characters, which helps. And it was a blast to play through. I had a lot of fun with it, and at the end of the day, that's what I'm looking for from a game. If I can say at the end I had fun with it, I enjoyed it, then it's done it, it's served its purpose. It's done what I wanted it to do. That being said, I can't ignore the fact that a lot of other players simply could not enjoy the game due to the numerous failures at launch. So that's going to impact my verdict on the game, even with the patches that have been released since then. It's a little, too little too late. So my final verdict on Cyberpunk 2077 is a solid 7 out of 10. It's a good game, which could have been great if the executives had given the devs more time to polish it up. I know there's probably a lot of backroom decisions going on that impacted that, but it is what it is. And as I said, there are planned DLCs coming up, and apparently it will receive even more support as the year goes on. There's even a multiplayer mode meant to be coming sometime down the line, probably into 2022 at this rate. I would urge you not to write this game off, however, as you'd be missing out on a great story. If I had to make a recommendation, it would be to pick this game up once the patches have been tested, the game's in a more stable state, especially if you're playing on console. I cannot stress that enough. Anyway, that's going to do it for my Cyberpunk 2077 review. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like on the video and comment below your thoughts on the game and any questions you might have for me that I didn't address here. As I said, it's my first time doing this, so I hope I covered most of the stuff that's important. I'm always happy to engage with fellow gamers, and also let me know if there's any other games you'd like me to look into in the future, maybe to do a let's play or even a review on. Anyway, I think that about wraps it up. Thanks for stopping by. Enjoy the rest of your day. See ya.